Well, hello everybody. That is a very, very difficult act to follow. Yeah, I'm not riding out in a car. I could try to do a cartwheel, you know, in kind of more of a Chris Farley sort of comedy act. I'd probably fall. That could be, but that was, Arthur, your kids are very lucky. Your students are exceptionally lucky to have a teacher like you. No doubt about that. So I will do my best here. And I see it's a very mixed bag. I see some very veteran people, and I see some present teachers, and I see some very new people. This is more for the new people, and the old people are going to chuckle because you know the drill. Start off as a thief and continue to steal throughout your career. Amen. Repeat. Okay. Now, this here is not my idea. In fact, it was a UP teacher, a man by the name of Blaine Betts, an exceptional educator. And I was in Virginia in 2007. And early in the morning, it's summertime, and it was crack of dawn. We're drinking our coffee and whatnot. And he writes this on the board, and there are 3 items of headlines of the day, and 3 items that happened in history on that particular day. And he just starts talking. It's a room full of social studies teachers, so of course, you know, we're getting crazy into it and talking about this. So I've used it ever since, and it's been a real positive in my classroom. I want to share this, and thank you, Blaine, for an idea I'm still using 9 years later. But for example, in Mount Clemens, there's a group of lawmakers and mothers meeting to try to get a registry for convicted child abusers. Now, you may or may not know, but in Michigan, there is a sex offender registry. You can tell I don't teach elementary school. We have a registry for our people who are incarcerated called Otis, and this seems like a natural sort of thing. And again, we're not going to turn this into a debate, because we certainly could, but that's a local scale. Now, local history is important. Now, again, I'm not from the UP, I'm from the Detroit area. It's like in your map, just but that's a state level and a local level story. Let's go to a federal level, a national level. The Republican Party is looking for somebody to take over Representative Boehner's job. And it's kind of a big hullabaloo. And as we know, and we can talk about this, Representative Ryan, da-da-da-da-da. A national story, and then an international story. A top Iranian general is killed by ISIS. Now, if this is a classroom, and I try to do this every day, you're hitting history at different levels, different scales. And I think it's important for students to scale as much as they can. And then this day in history, and I'm going to steal, again, I'm telling you younger people to be a thief. And I remember Blaine said this 8 or 9 years ago. He said, you have 180 school days. 3 items in history. Do the math. Now, could that be the item that appears on a standardized test? Could that be the item that just a little remembrance of, just a little dredging up the old stuff they learned in prior classes that pushes them over the edge? And it's a wonderful assertion, and you can do this math. So in history, you know, 1635, Rhode Island gets banished, the Rhode Island founder gets banished from Massachusetts. Now, that's 8th grade history. I teach 10th grade history. But let's say, oh yeah, I remember that. Yeah, the 13 colonies, they weren't all united. It was fairly disjointed, and there was all that hullabaloo about religion and da-da-da-da-da. They may be into it, and there's some days that you can just see it. Like, they perk up, you know, especially in the first hour. Ooh, you can get into it, and it's a good way to start every class. The Hoover Dam transmitted electricity, and you can talk about the Great Depression, and you can talk about engineering feats in American history. And the Khmer Rouge, that's a fun topic. If you saw The Killing Field, I don't think you're going to watch that movie twice. And again, maybe not for elementary school. And you can kind of pick and choose, and I just did today's, and I've used it every day in my class since I learned from Blaine in the summer of '07. So I don't think he's still teaching, but he's around. Thank you. And you know, you talk about students coming back and that legacy piece. It's not as cool as that, but one thing it has engendered, and I've seen it engender in people, is a desire to keep up with the news. And like, for instance, I have a substitute in my room today. On Monday, I'm going to have some kids say, hey, what were the 3 headlines? Or, you know, what happened in history? And it's a good kind of practice. By the way, it's more for the new teachers to have some sort of structure. And some people I know have a question of the day, or a journal entry, or something or other. But to get into that regimentation, it's variety within regimentation. It's probably a healthy practice. So I just want to share that, and I hope I don't trip on any cord. Also, let me find the handy-dandy internet here. It was there. I did have some tabs open. Could it be in?
Oh, yeah. Yep, I'm in.
There it is. Okay, great. Can everybody see it, or is it? Okay, now, it is 2015, and I've learned something. Young people like computer-oriented stuff. So the one thing I would strongly suggest for people who are starting off is to have a Twitter feed, and it gets a group of kids you're not normally going to get. And this is my Twitter feed before I actually do the lesson. And having it day by day by day, and just to have the items. So if, for instance, let's say a student is absent. They can see the links of what we're doing in class, whether it be a video link or kids looking silly, or what's on the board, and recapping things you may have learned about in class. And I would argue in this day and age to have some sort of internet presence for the secondary level, maybe not elementary school level, but certainly my students who are 15, 16 years old, having this sort of correspondence, whether it be Facebook or Twitter. And I will, let's say one more thing, kind of preemptively, again, this is geared for the student teachers primarily, is having some sort of repository for your lessons. And there's actually, it's all positive, it's all good. First of all, parents love it. They say things like, hey, I can keep up with my kid because I have 3 children of my own. And what's the classic answer you're going to get? Hey, what'd you do in school today? No, nah, nothing. I'll show you nothing. And you can click on Unit 1, and to have it day by day by day, day 2, day 4, day 5, having a repository. So that's a positive, obviously, for the parents. Also, a student is sick, or they're just having a bad day. I think people who've taught secondary have had these ridiculous situations of people who have come into your room. I had one kid with a ripped shirt and a bloody nose. Showing up for class. Did you just get into a fight? Yeah, I'm fine. No, you're okay. Or the classic, they just broke up and they're history is not going to be taught, or you're just simply sick. Students can go back and see everything you've done. And also, this is more for the young people, you have been ushered into the age of No Child Left Behind that began back in 2001. It's all about accountability, evidence, prove that you've done something, through things like a Twitter feed, through things like a Moodle page. It provides the evidence to the administrator who may or may not be positive. Okay, I'm fortunate. My principal is exceptional. I've been around the state and I've heard the opposite. I've heard some people who have principals keep them up at night. But having this sort of item, I would argue, is important. So this is called Moodle, Twitter. I know Edmodo is big now. There's plenty of different vehicles, but to have one, and then can I be honest on a kind of practical, selfish level, if you teach the same class for a long time and you get that jewel, okay, by the way, Arthur, you're going to give up that Henry Ford Prezi? I wouldn't give that up. That's gold. You can keep that. And assuming you teach the same thing and you have a good one, keep it. Going back to our whole adage, if you find somebody else that has a good thing, you put it on your repository page and life is easy. And this is the practical advice to the new people. Okay, now, when giving a talk today, I realized I would be in a room like this, a mixed bag of elementary and middle school, high school, college professors, 18-year-olds. That guy in the corner, you seem much older than 18. Yeah, okay. So I thought to myself, what is something that applies to everybody? And what came to my mind is primary sources and historical scale. And we're going to do an abbreviated version of this. And you may have saw me a couple minutes ago putting all of these items on the respective desks and tables. And they're numbered, okay? And it starts over there. You'll see a little black wrench. And then you see a gray box. You'll see some metal thingamabobbers there. We'll see a pile of stuff here, 8. And because you are not in high school, I will spare you from actually writing down your hypothesis. So just on a very abbreviated level, I'm going to ask you to get up and guess the story that these artifacts tell. Each of them has a story. Some are personal. Some have to do with the state of Michigan. Some have to do with this nation. Some have to do with this world. I'm going to ask you all to physically get up and look at these items, touch them, handle them. By the way, if you've taught secondary and you have boys, they are very excited to move around and touch stuff. Okay, hopefully it's not the other students. So start with one and circulate around the room very quickly. There's a big charred piece of plastic in the corner there.
Right.
Yeah, that's a dinosaur there. Did you catch the copyright year on that bad boy? No, I'm curious. How old are you?
I'm 20.
Okay, you're 20. Now that came out in 2003, so what is that? So for me, that was like cutting edge. For you, that's elementary school, right? So, by the way, I have had students unable to identify what an LP is. Yeah, and again, please open up anything. Nobody's here for number 8. If you want to guess what this is, that was found in my school library. It is, yes. Now, if there's any Spanish speakers in the room, they will have a distinct advantage of that red blanket in the back.
I started following you on Twitter, and he says it just popped up right on the screen.
Oh, cool, right on, yeah.
We were interactive, right?
Yeah. Yeah, you know, and by the way, the social media thing, if you're using it for work, obviously you have to keep it squeaky clean and rated G. So unfortunately, I have to give up the intriguing social dynamics that comes from a personal account. Or I could get like a nickname.
Well, I tell them have a second account, have a professional one, put all your professional
Okay.
feed in one, and
Yeah.
you keep your private one private.
Right.
How else are you going to know what's going on in the world unless you have a Twitter feed?
Right.
Really real. She's coming back, by the way.
Yeah, that's gold right there. That is gold.
There are people that are really seeking out violence.
Now I can commiserate with my dog. I can feel what he goes through. Yeah. I so want to walk around, but I'm tethered. I can't. Yeah. Okay.
Oh, yeah, you remember that? That's when that was.
Now I'm surprised the younger generation isn't consulting the older generation. It's black, it's circular, it has some grooves in it. A frisbee. Oh, yes.
We were just saying that we hope it did its job.
Okay, I don't see anybody at those metal items there. So if you can envision this being a bunch of high school students able to walk around and talk. By the way, I do this on the 4th day of class. This gives me a golden opportunity to actually talk to my students and get to know them and build a little bit of a relationship piece and the foundational part. As we're walking around and doing our thing, if you do teach world history, there's a foundational unit. And in that foundational unit, there are skills for whatever you're teaching, whether it be economics or government or elementary or middle school, doesn't matter. All right, should we stop belaboring it? Okay, now you can actually string it out as long as you want. In fact, you know, Arthur, you probably thought I was just like totally like flaky out. I'm like, oh yeah, I don't care if you go long, if you go short, no problem. And this is a very much a one-size kind of fits all unit because you can control the number of artifacts you bring forth. You can control the time. Now, I did say each of these have a story, and this is a crazy idea. And, I do believe my students can think for themselves. It's crazy. And I try to foster that because I think especially in 2015, we're inundated with so many media messages, and I would argue manipulations at a time that it's hard to find truth. The only way we're going to find truth in our history is through primary sources. And this is just one. In fact, I feel like ridiculous, but I can't move here. Hey, bearded man in red shirt over there,
Yeah.
would you mind giving one of these to the people? Okay. Now, at every PD I try to give something. And by the way, this is on day 4 of my Moodle page. So here's the item I want to give you. And as you're talking history, and I don't care what level it is, I don't care what age group it is, a primary source is unbiased. A primary source allows somebody to think for themselves. And a primary source has a personal connection. I don't care who you are. Even your most defiant, I don't like history. You do like history. And let me explain to you why. I'm sure there's possessions in your home that you value very, very much. Now, obviously, I'm talking to a room full of adults. I won't go into an artifact. But in a sense, you just handled, if you can start here in the upper right-hand corner, an artifact. And I would venture to say each and every one of you have a material item that you wouldn't sell for anything, but it wouldn't get $1 at a garage sale, okay? It's meaningful to you. And I'm actually going to share some stories here to try to illustrate my point, how primary sources have this. Interviews, not the most exciting thing of the primary sources, but they are very telling. And if you teach U.S. history, key interviews that were given, you can think of Cronkite in Vietnam, for instance, those sorts of things. Very powerful message. Poetry, at the risk of coming across as sounding kind of sexist, but girls tend to love poetry a lot more than boys. And there are some teachers out there, I call them my bomb and bullet historians. World War I, World War II, Korea. You lose some of the people in doing this. But poetry, in particular, if you teach the Civil War, some of the poetic messages that were sent back and forth, they are so human and they are so powerful and they are so meaningful. And your female students don't have to hear about blood and guts and things that go boom. And it is all part of the same story, and you can get the artistic types there. Journals, you know what? Especially, I used to teach middle school. Maybe we've experienced this. Did anybody have an unpleasant middle school experience? Whew, okay. Through a journal, people express these really deep, profound things within a journal, and you can do it personally. People don't. I know Teddy Roosevelt, when you read his journal, when his mother and his wife passed away, and just within hours of each other, what he writes it's very profound. It's very meaningful, and every human being has gone through something, loss. And you can tap into people at a very fundamental human level. Autobiographies, heck, Henry Ford, it's right there. It's an interesting, everybody has somebody they're particularly interested in. You can do that. Newspapers, news footage. You guys ever hit up museum.com? Museum, great archive of newspapers, news footage, speeches, music and art and photographs. I just showed a painting the other day by Thomas Cole called The Architect's Dream. And I was capturing kids I normally don't capture. They finally had the light bulb go on. Because through a painting, it tells a very profound story about Western civilization. So primary sources have no bias, and it allows people to think for themselves and has significance. And then, could I get some volunteers to hand me some of these items? Because I would physically do it myself. I'm not trying to be late. Would you mind handing me these? Let's go with something. Can you hand me the axe head too? Maybe, again, this is not for elementary school, Hey, Jimmy, catch! Okay, no. Woo! Okay, now, obviously, these were probably the easiest one to find. Again, Michigan history. Okay. And by the way, if you embellish the story of your artifact, I won't think less of you. Okay, but you can really embellish the story. So let's say, Arthur, can I borrow an elementary school moment from you, Michigan history? This came from a cabin 10 miles from here. What was life like for frontier Michiganders? Well, you know what? This is an old axe head, and if you took a look at it, it is beat to death. This has gone through some hard years, and it is illustrative of this life. Now, obviously, railroad spike. Okay, tell the story of the railroad. Let this be the catalyst of telling a story. Get them intrigued. Okay, talk about how they were. I loved your math idea. I thought that was stellar. I really did, because math's a hard sell. I think history's an easy sell. But if you were to say, here's the length of railroads that went through wherever, they spaced these at each one. How much steel was required? How much manpower is required? The whole story of the railroad, there. I guess I can put this. I'm not going to hit the box. Can anybody else? Hey, could you hand me, I don't know, whatever's, somebody, yeah, thank you. I actually got a chuckle this year. Okay. I'm going to pick on these people here. You know what this is? No helping in the back there. This was coveted in 2001. This was gold in 2001.
Expensive gold.
We figured it was just some type of timer, timing, keep track of time.
Like a track coach thing.
Yeah.
I am a track coach, yeah, but good guess. No. It is a timer, because it says timer. Do you know how it was do you know how it was used, by the way? Did anybody catch the back comes down? Now it's transparent. A little clue.
Is it on the projector?
It is on the projector. Yeah, that was actually a big deal. they had these items called transparency projectors where you would copy upon a piece of plastic and you'd project the image and you could put on, okay kids, 10 minutes. And they could stare at it and, here, watch the old timers. What'd they do the last 10 seconds? Yeah, you remember that, okay, yeah. By the way, you can tell a lot of stories. You can tell a story how the speed of technology. You can talk about how quick innovation. You know, if you're highbrow world history, talk about acceleration. Tammy, hey, big history. Okay, represent. So we're there. Okay, could I trouble somebody to get that wrench? I actually can throw this. All right. For an old wrestler making a basket, that's rare. Okay, thank you. Now, this is usually the most innocuous object when I have my students do this. First of all, remember I said it, you probably couldn't sell this at a garage sale for what? And people are like, well, it's a little black wrench. Hooray, I'm moving on. But if you look deeper, and of course I ham it up with my students, to look at the middle, and if you didn't get a chance to see it, it says Ford USA. And on the back, there's the letter M, okay? Now, maybe I can share you this story. Now, as I'm finding this picture, and you'll appreciate this, as you're finding this picture, what do you think the meaning of this wrench is? Now that you know Ford USA and the letter M. Can anybody who's behind me, you would never do this to a middle school, by the way. They're like the ocean, don't do it. But what clue does that give? How about the letter M?
Michigan?
Give you a clue, two-word answer, I see. I see. Interchangeable parts, interchangeable parts. Meaning, at Ford Motor Company, whatever nut was being turned on that device, here, this was it. Now, talking about how primary sources have personal connection. Okay, now, this wrench came from Ford Motor Company. This is 1942, and Ford Motor Company transitioned from making automobiles to becoming the arsenal of democracy, which Detroit, Michigan was. Okay, so many munitions came from Detroit, Michigan to help the Allies win World War II. Now, as a personal connection, I know it's a little bit light. Let me give you a clue. If you look in the right there, and I can't go very far. I'm going to take a gander who that guy is. Okay, we have any resemblance? Now that is my grandfather. Now that is my grandfather who worked for Ford Motor Company. Okay, and these men possessed wrenches like this and knew how to, and they were getting an award for production to help the war effort. By the way, I just turned a little wrench into a story of World War II. I just took this wrench and turned it into a story of the arsenal of democracy and of immigration. My grandfather was born in Italy and came to this country to work in the auto industry. What a Detroit story that is. You know what I'm saying? And it doesn't mean that to you, does it? But primary sources have that meaning. It can become very, very personal. Okay, this one here, this is a real treat back then. The world's first PowerPoint. Woo, good. I didn't have anybody set it up. It's fairly simple. I think it might be simpler than the Model T model there. I'm trying to do, actually need a table. There we go, there's one. Come on, you can do this. There's two. And you place this item like this so you could take your slides and physically arrange them to be put into a circular machine to look at pictures. And that was a treat. Okay, the world's first PowerPoint, and again, you can riff off the stories, whatever your subject is, but have we not come a long way? The Easy View slide sorter with what every house needs. I feel like I'm going to get yanked back, just like my dog when he's excited for his walk. All right. Now, this one is actually the most personal. It was actually the most looked over. Now, and again, you can gauge, your class or your age level or what you want to say, or how much of yourself you want to reveal. Now, this to me, anybody catch what this was or is? It was a smoke detector. It looks like it's seen better days, right? Okay. Now, the story behind this is in January of 2007, my house burnt down. The entire house gone. Bulldozed, gone. And I was coaching wrestling at the time. And all of a sudden, my captain's calling for me, my name's over the loudspeaker, and the phone's ringing. Something is going on. I have to pick one. I talk to the secretary. She goes, yeah, Anthony, your house is on fire. Okay. And you ever seen a fat guy run that fast? The answer is no. You've never seen a big guy run that fast. Just booked down the hallway, got into the car, caught every green light, and I just didn't know what was going on. I had 2 children. I said, where are the kids? Where are the kids? Where are the kids? I had no idea. They said they left. They're gone. And it was the darndest thing that ever happened to me. I watched it burn down. And I didn't particularly care. You might think I'm crazy. Get me a marshmallow. I don't care. I'm making s'mores. But here's the thing. What caused me to get instant perspective? Where are my kids? Where are my kids? Where are my kids? And this was taken from their bedroom. This is taken from their bedroom. This could have been them a half an hour earlier. So to me, this is gratitude. This is a physical item that is gratitude. You don't see me have many bad days. You know why? You go through this, you don't have bad days. By the way, some kids are on a cerebral level. Some kids are on an emotional level. Sometimes if you reveal yourself, don't turn it into therapy, but you tell a story like that with a message, you might connect with somebody who might be a little perhaps shy or feels uncomfortable talking to authority figures or teachers, and you might make that connection. And don't undervalue the relationship piece. Okay, I know you're probably in classes, your methods classes, and your content and your techniques. The older I get, the more I realize, and I will say this, it's the relationship piece that is paramount. If you can connect with them, you can plug in science, algebra, history, doesn't matter. Okay. On a brighter note, they're all good and happy and healthy, so it's a happy ending. All right. That house had to go anyway, right? All right. No, maybe not. I'm just trying to rationalize. Okay. Here's a happier meaning. By the way, this has a different meaning. And my school has a good amount of Spanish speakers, and they have an advantage on this one here. And they may catch the key Spanish word that reveals this happy story. That other one's not so happy. This is happier. Anybody see the Spanish word that might reveal? What? Matrimonio. For those, do you know what that means? Marriage. That's good. I've had a lot of kids theorize. I've had the birds representing death. It's a lynching dance because evidently one has a lasso there. I've had Mexican cookout. I've had all sorts of things here. This is a wedding blanket. This is a wedding blanket, and in some cultures, it's customary on the day of your wedding to receive this blanket, which I received on my wedding. So for me, it's happy, it's positive, it's hooray. And as a track coach, every year it turns into a saving blanket for some little 2-miler, some little 98-pound 2-miler who didn't dress appropriately. Coach, can I have the blanket? And I just walk here all day. Because usually, if you're a track coach, you know this. Weather changes quickly, and this is my emergency blanket. And Coach, I don't have enough clothes. Get the red blanket. And okay, a little 2-miler who's shivering in the rain could give a hoot. It's my wedding blanket. She's just trying to survive another day. Same item, different meaning. Primary sources have different things. There are some track athletes out there who consider this their saving grace. Into the bucket you go. Okay. Any other artifacts out there? Oh, this is fun. Hi. This is how we used to keep information on things. On a 5 1/4-inch disc. Yeah. What would you say? How many of these could fit on your modern cell phone? Let's talk about your Model T circling the Earth. You could probably do that with this. Okay. By the way, you might have noticed they're wicked flimsy. Yeah, wow. Maybe not the greatest engineering ever. Now I'm getting finally to the point where kids don't know what this is. Finally. What? Yeah, an A drive. Technology moves incredibly quickly. And by the way, can you riff off this already? This is my favorite pile here. I can't reach it, of course. I'm sorry. Into the bucket you go. Into the bucket you go. Okay. Oh, yeah. Here's I got a chuckle. Digitized music circa 2003. Yeah, this was a big deal. Yeah. Now, can you hand me Barry Manilow? Yeah, in a second. No, Barry Manilow, there he is. Yeah, now you want quality music. You can't beat Barry Manilow. Yeah, you know what? I'm getting to the age now where kids don't know what an LP is. Yes, it's crazy. You used to take a black disc and you used to put a needle upon it and it would spin and have that really great crackling sound I still like. Yeah, versus this is, let's see, 20 gigabytes. How many of these fit on this? 2003, 1975. What has happened? History, history, innovation, innovation. Go on. By the way, check out some of the, just check out the big cassette tape there. That red one? Yeah, can you mind? Thank you. I hate to bother you. I appreciate it so much. Look at this bad boy. Even the old timers are going to look at this. The short-lived giant cassette. If I can get you out of the box. Look at this. Ooh, wow. And you know, I'm kind of horsing around. You can have fun with it. You can make it serious. It's kind of up to your personality in your classroom. But can we all agree that technology gets smaller and it gets cheaper and there's these innovative trends that happen? And this, by the way, if you're wondering where I acquired all of these, we had this librarian who I think got hired in during the Roosevelt administration. Teddy Roosevelt, actually. But she was there for, I think, like 93 years. And she kept a lot of stuff in our school archives. And when we finally got a renovation, there was all these items lying around. And she must have thought I was crazy. She's very nice. I'm just kidding around. But I said, hey, can I take all that? Don't throw it in the trash. Sure, knock yourself out. And you know, and as I travel and I can find different artifacts, and these, I have others, I just grab kind of just a cross section to make my point. And again, going back to the scale thing, scale would be, I don't know, personal scale, clearly, Michigan history scale, clearly, the technology innovations of the world, global. So I'm going to argue whatever level you're at, you need to use primary sources and do different scales. Unfortunately, can I tell you the example that sinks in the best for my students with primary sources? I hope this doesn't happen in elementary school. The fist fight. The fist fight. And for you secondary types, they happen. They happen. And oftentimes I break them up, and as a historian, I'm always intrigued by what they say. It's always interesting to me. Oh, he did this, he said this, he did this, he said this, he said this, da, 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 da. Ultimately, what is the only source that I'm going to believe in a fist fight? The eye in the sky. The eye in the sky has no bias. The eye in the sky will give an accurate depiction, and that's about the only thing you can trust because, and you can ham up the fist fight analogy, but they've seen it, the bias, the inaccuracies. It's remarkable. It happened 5 minutes ago, and I'm getting 10 different accounts. It makes you worry about history a little bit, okay? It really does. However, probably the saving grace of history is the utilization of primary sources. It lets people think for themselves, and I'm probably teetering on the mark, so I'm supposed to set some time for question and answers. Okay, first answer, I'm a Leo. Second question,